Kính chào và kính thưa quý vị khán thính giả. Dự án kênh đào Funan Techo của Campuchia, vấn đề và thách thức cùng giải pháp là chủ đề của bàn tròn chuyên đề tuần này của VOA Tiếng Việt. Với sự tham gia của các khách mời, chúng tôi xin trân trọng giới thiệu. Tại studio của chúng tôi lúc này ở thủ đô Hoa Thịnh Đốn, Washington DC, Hoa Kỳ là tiến sĩ Brian Ayler. Ông là giám đốc của chương trình năng lượng nước phát triển bền vững, giám đốc chương trình Đông Nam Á của trung tâm Stimson tại Washington DC của Hoa Kỳ. Chúng tôi còn có sự tham gia từ Singapore của tiến sĩ VOATiengViet Trang. Ông là chuyên gia phân tích chính sách công và chủ tịch hội đồng cố vấn của Chủ tịch Quốc hội Campuchia. Và chúng tôi cũng có sự tham gia của một khách mời nữa, đó là luật sư Lê Quốc Quân, một nhà quan sát về chính sách công cũng như luật pháp độc lập và là người quan sát độc lập đối với chủ đề này. Trước hết chúng tôi xin chân thành cảm ơn các vị khách mời đã nhận lời tham gia đóng góp chương trình này và cảm ơn quý vị khán thính giả dành thời gian theo dõi chương trình. So dear viewers and distinguished guests, welcome to VOA Vietnamese Weekly Talk Show this week with Cambodia's Funan Techo Canal project issues, challenges and solutions is the topic of today's discussion show. Joining the program, we have the pleasure to introduce the following distinguished guests. First of all, Dr. Brian Ayler from the Southeast Asia program, and he's a director. And also he's a director of Energy, Water, Sustainability Program under Stimson Center based in Washington, D.C. So welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
And the next guest, we have the pleasure to introduce Dr. VOATiengViet Trang. He's a public policy analyst, chairman of Advisory Council of the President of Cambodia's National Assembly and chairman of Angkor Social Innovation Park. And he's joining from Singapore. Thank you very much, Dr. Trang. And the next guest, we have lawyer Lê Quốc Quân, the Vietnamese independent public and legal policy observer. He's particularly interested in this issue as an independent observer. So once again, we would like to thank you, all of you, our guests, panelists, for participating in the program. And thank you our audience, viewers of VOA News Vietnamese for watching our program. Kính thưa quý vị, như quý vị biết thì theo truyền thông quốc tế, Thủ tướng Hun Manet của Campuchia đã phát biểu hôm 30 tháng 5 năm 2024. Ông tuyên bố và thông báo rằng Campuchia sẽ khởi công dự án làm kênh đào Funan Techo dưới sự hợp tác của Trung Quốc với khoản vốn đầu tư mà truyền thông đưa tin là có trị giá là khoảng 1,7 tỷ đô la và sẽ dự kiến khởi công vào tháng 8 năm 2024, tức là có thể chỉ hơn hoặc là trong vòng 30 ngày nữa sẽ khởi sự. Trước hết thì chúng tôi muốn xin được nghe các cái thông tin cập nhật về dự án này từ phía các vị khách mời để xem là từ đó tới nay đấy thì đã có những gì mới và đáng chú ý liên quan đến việc chuẩn bị và khởi công thực hiện dự án này. So, as you know, according to international and regional media, recently Cambodian Prime Minister Mr. Hun Manet said on May the 30th, 2024, that Cambodia will start the Funan Techo Canal project with the cooperation of China with an investment capital of $1.7 billion in August 2024, which means it will start in just over 30 days or so. So first of all, we would like to hear some updated information, if any, about this project from our guests, and to see if there is anything new and related to the preparation, the commencement and implementation of this project. So may we first of all invite Dr. Trang to share your view. So Dr. Trang, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here. Xin chào. The project is ongoing and it is expected to launch groundbreaking ceremony on August 5th. So August 5th is also the birthday of former Prime Minister Hun Sen, and currently is President of the Senate. So he chose this as his birthday gift for celebration. And lately, at a meeting at the headquarters of the Cambodian People's Party, the president of the CPP, Hun Sen, also encouraged kind of nationwide movement to support that, and have several kind of ceremonies, religious ceremony, or even at the temple, in order to celebrate the inauguration. So that is a big movement, kind of comparable to the inscription of Preah Temple as a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in 2008, which, as you may recall, that is the kind of the beginning of the tension between Cambodia and Thailand with regards to the vicinity areas surrounding the Preah Temple, because Thai at the time accused Cambodia of taking over this overlapping claim. But anyway, so that is, if we compare to that, I think it's kind of a similar ground scale in terms of launching of Techo Canal. So it is expected, according to various studies, that it may take about four years to be completed. But I think when it comes to time frame, a lot of uncertainties relating to the actual investment capital, for instance, how much they need in order to realize this project. So those some of the remaining issues that I think perhaps on the launching day, the government will elaborate further on the source of funding.
Alright, so vâng, chúng tôi xin cảm ơn tiến sĩ Van der Richian, và bây giờ thì chúng tôi chuyển sang để nghe ý kiến của luật sư Lê Quốc Quân. So thank you very much, Dr. Chiang, and now let's move to lawyer Lê Quốc Quân. If you have anything to share from your observation, please. Can you switch on to your microphone, please? Thank you.
Thank you for the brief introduction and the very clear message from the Dr. Van der Rit. From my point of view, I think the Cambodians have made a very significant move. If I don't mean that, it's very, very, very strong movement about the nation on this, because they started, according to my point of view, it's quite soon after the getting the support and getting the awareness of the peoples very recently. And they decided, Cambodia decided to choose August the 5th is the day that they started groundbreaking. And it's like a very big celebrations of the nations, and with the nationwide fireworks. I heard that, yeah. And that is the birthday of the Hun Sen, the Samdech Hun Sen. And the Funan Techo is the Techo is also the name. It's a great, but it's also the name is one of the middle names of the Samdech Hun Sen. And recently we can see some very very strong movements and very tight cooperation between the China's and Cambodia government, especially in the cooperations, not only in the economies, in the fundings for the infrastructure projects, but also about the military cooperations and about the military leasings or land leasings. And those movements may cause, it's not very clear, but we may foresee the endangers and the threats of the areas And I think this may put Vietnam into a very cautious situations, or Vietnam may have to consider or has been considered this issue very, very seriously. And not only Vietnam, I think United States also, consider these recent moves very closely and very seriously. We may see that recently the U.S. The Minister of Defense, the Secretary of Defense Department has visited Cambodia, because of quite a long time, the Americans put some embargoes or they're put away from the Cambodia. That's why now I think that China is moving in, and they have been filling in the last more than 10 years a lot of activities that we should be consider about it. That's my general point of view.
Vâng, cảm ơn luật sư Lê Quốc Quân. So thank you, Lê Quốc Quân. Bây giờ thì tiếp theo thì chúng tôi xin mời tiến sĩ Brian Eiler. Okay, so the next, can we hear your view?
Sure.
Okay, Dr. Eiler.
Yeah. So Peter, again, thank you for inviting me to speak about the Funan Techo Canal. As an American here in Washington, D.C., I'm an observer of this issue, as well as someone that has campaigned and advocated for better uses of the Mekong River and a conservation of the Mekong River's natural resources. First and foremost, Cambodia has every right to build this canal and utilize the Mekong River for its own development purposes. But it also needs to follow the 1995 Mekong Agreement and the rules that were set forward in that particular agreement. But before we get into international law and how this project is actually breaking international treaty, as well as environmental impacts or any of the other, say, the defense implications that Dr. Nguyen was getting to, provide some updates. The story around this canal tends to change week to week or month to month. When it was first announced, it was a Belt and Road project, a BOT project that would be owned and operated by a Chinese state-owned enterprise, the CRBC construction company. And then, after, a couple of months later, it changed to being a project that was not China financed and not a China project, not a Belt and Road project. I think it was about a month ago that Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chan-to and Prime Minister Hun Manet said something like, this is a Cambodian project and Cambodians are going to finance it. But then last week in the Straits Times, during an interview with Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chan-to, the narrative changed again. So now we're learning that indeed the CBRC, Chinese state-owned enterprise, will be involved with the construction and the ownership of the canal with a 49% equity stake. 51% will be owned by a Cambodian entity. Together, they will form a joint entity to own and operate the canal. Financing, a majority of it is going to come from China, apparently, to that entity. Cambodia won't take on any sovereign debt. The financing will go to the owning entity. And then finance with about $250 million of financing. So that's kind of an update, but important. The narrative keeps changing, so we don't know what next week will bring, and whether the groundbreaking ceremony is meaningful on August 5th, meaning that the actual construction will continue, really has. I think we should question that. One of the points made in an interview in the Straits Times with Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chan-to, he said that some of the financing could take 4 to 5 years to come together because financial institutions need approval processes. So from that, I read that it could take 4 to 5 years for actual construction to begin on this canal.
Okay. Vâng, và bây giờ thì thưa quý vị, có một câu hỏi tiếp theo nữa đấy. Đó là theo quý vị thì vì sao mà cái dự án do phía Campuchia tuyên bố là sẽ thực hiện ở trong cái vùng lãnh thổ của mình, nhưng mà từ khi được có thông tin và tuyên bố ra cái việc là cái thành lập cái dự án này, và nhất là sau khi mà lại được thông báo về cái thời điểm mà khởi công đấy, cái dự án này thì ở trong công luận, đặc biệt là trong dư luận và giới quan sát ở trong khu vực cũng như là quốc tế đấy, thì họ lại quan tâm tới cái dự án này đến như thế. So the next question, our distinguished guest, is that in your opinion, why is this project declared by Cambodian government to be implemented within the country's territory? But since the announcement of the project's establishment, and especially since the announcement of the project's commencement date, the groundbreaking date, it has attracted, it seems to have attracted public attention, and not only from public opinion and observers in the Mekong River related area. So what is the reason? So again, và một lần nữa thì chúng tôi xin mời tiến sĩ VOATiengViet trả lời phần này trước. So once again, we would like to hear Dr. VOATiengViet first for this question.
Yeah, so I think we need to look at the project from different angles and perspectives. Economic perspectives are very clear. I think the Cambodian leaders have explained it many times with regards to economic benefits to be deriving from this project. But most of the debates at this stage is more of this kind of the political independence for Cambodia. How they define political independence? First, I think to reduce our reliance on Vietnam with regards to logistics and transport. Second, also have some implication of Cambodia-Vietnam kind of relationship, right? That a kind of political independence, meaning that Vietnam does not have that much influence over Cambodia compared with the past decades since 1979. Compared with Laos, Vietnam still has strong influence in Laos, right? But Cambodia, that is a signal, and also for domestic consumption, because Hun Sen had been accused by the opposition leaders and supporters. He's a puppet of Vietnam for many decades, even before 1929. So now that is the time that he needs to declare, I'm not a puppet of Vietnam. I'm an independent person. I pursue my independence as a kind of autonomous strategy. So that is kind of implications of what former Prime Minister used the term political independence. So that is another layer of debate and discussion in Cambodia. So another layer is a national identity or prestige attached to Funan. Because Cambodia is a proud nation, so they are very proud of their past glorious history as a Khmer Empire that spanned across the mainland Southeast Asia. And southern part of Vietnam, the Mekong Delta, used to be part of that Khmer Empire. And Funan also, embodies the Mekong Delta, right? So that is quite complex historical identity, and also connect to Phu Quoc Island, Cambodia call it Cotrol. So Phu Quoc and Cotrol also one of the most sensitive issues between Cambodia and Vietnam and historical narratives. So now our border demarcation, which is still about 10%, which is I think very difficult to negotiate the remaining 10%. So that is the source of tension, and historical narratives and identity and sovereignty and independence all combined together that really drive this kind of political movement in Cambodia to support this project.
Thế vừa rồi là ý kiến của tiến sĩ VOATiengViet từ Singapore, nhà nghiên cứu của người Campuchia từ Singapore. Bây giờ thì chúng tôi muốn nghe ý kiến của luật sư Lê Quốc Quân. So we have just listened to the opinions of Dr. VOATiengViet from Singapore, right? So how about your opinion, lawyer Lê Quốc Quân? Can you please turn on your Kamik, please.
I agree with the point of views of Dr. Van Aert of the complexities and of the historicals and all the difficulties and the opportunities in relationship between the Vietnam and Cambodia. I agree on that, but it's not limited to that. These issues is coming to much more challenging and much more difficulties because of the Chinese factor. So we have witnessed a lot of things, a lot of movement recently, and the cooperation between the China and Cambodia. And we look at back history, 1977 and 1979, 1977, the world border between Vietnam and Cambodia, and also 2 years later, our northern war with China, 1979. So I mean that the Chinese factor here is that something that call seriously concern of Vietnamese and Vietnamese government also, because the first, we see the ambiguity, which is not clear about the information that has been provided by the Cambodian government to Mekong Mekong River committees. That's why Vietnamese government has to demand twice to release more information, because the more information we have, the clearer picture we may see, and the better for us to find a solution among two nations, Vietnam and Cambodia. Not involvement much about the Chinese. Now we are very afraid about the connections from Funan, the Chinas, and going to Laos, and going to Cambodia, and go straight to the Thai basin. So, and you mentioned also about Phu Quoc. And Phu Quoc also, once it is connected with the Funan Techo, you may see that the Chinese, recently you have a military cooperation at the Rims military base, and Chinese already has there. And the thing is, I mean, that the pictures now is much more broader and pushing more challenges and tensions for Vietnamese people. And it caused a lot of concern of Vietnamese peoples about their national sovereignties and about the national security, rather than an economies or social developmental projects. And one serious problem is about the Mekong River, Mekong Delta areas. And also you see the article number 8 in the, Dr. Brian's mentioned about the agreements in 1995, it called that the state responsibility. Article number 8 mentioned about the state responsibility for damages, and Vietnamese people are now considering about the damages if the Cambodian decided to build this big cannon, Funan Techo cannon, without clear, better, more informed informations on these projects. That is something we are concerning about, and I think it's very important for all both sides, Vietnam and Cambodia, to share the information and to make decisions together.
Vâng, thế vừa rồi là ý kiến của luật sư Lê Quốc Quân. Bây giờ thì chúng tôi sẽ xin mời tiến sĩ Brian Eiler chia sẻ cái góc nhìn của ông. So we have just listened to Lawyer Kun's, and before that, Dr. Chiang's opinions. And how was your opinion now, Dr. Brian Eiler?
Well, Peter, when I first learned about this project, it was well over a year ago, I thought it was a smart idea. Because it reduced Cambodia's reliance on using the Mekong River and the Basak Channel, which is a distributary or a branch of the mainstream for transport of cargo out into the ocean. Most of this cargo is going from Phnom Penh down the mainstream or the Tianzang, all the way to Vung Tau, right, to the large ports there. And it's taken off of river cargo ships and put onto larger ocean-bound ships and then shipped out to the rest of the world. There are costs with that, and obviously it has to pass through Vietnamese territory. So building a canal obviates the need to go through Vietnamese territory. Sounds like a good idea. But the more I thought about it, I wondered about the environmental impacts, the uses of water, some of the geopolitical impacts, and most importantly, Cambodia has been a champion of the Mekong for a really long time, and I'm really proud to say, because I follow how Cambodia has held other Mekong countries accountable to follow the 1995 Mekong Agreement. Cambodia is like the most progressive country for conserving the Mekong. It's not Vietnam. I can tell you a lot of good stories about Vietnam, but I can tell you a lot of bad stories about Vietnam's use of the Mekong too. It's really Cambodia that has held countries like Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam accountable to follow this 1995 Mekong Agreement. It's Cambodia that has put a moratorium on its two large Mekong mainstream dams, which would be killer dams for the Tonle Sap in Cambodia and the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. And it's Prime Minister Hun Manet who last year prioritized at the national security level for Cambodia the protection of the Tonle Sap floodplain, because the fishery of the Tonle Sap provides the people of Cambodia with 70% of its animal protein intake. So again, Cambodia has been a champion of the Mekong, a champion of the 1995 Mekong Agreement, really until the Funan Techo Canal came up. And there was one mistake or error or inappropriate communication about this canal in the official notification to the Mekong River Commission that shows very clearly to me that Cambodia is at risk of losing that champion status. And that is that it has called this project a tributary project. And it's not a tributary project. And its official notification document said that Funan Techo Canal is a tributary project, and therefore we Cambodia only need to notify the Mekong River Commission about this canal. There's no need for consultation, and there's no need for any agreement. Unfortunately, it's not a tributary project. The canal connects to the Mekong mainstream, the Tianzang. The channel that everyone agrees to is the mainstream of the Mekong, and the Basak, the Hozang, right? The Basak is a channel of the Mekong mainstream. It's not a tributary. There's anywhere where a definition of a tributary can be applied to the Basak channel. So this canal connects to two Mekong mainstream channels. Because of that, it requires a consultation process with the Mekong River Commission. And a consultation process will have all the documents disseminated to the Mekong River Commission that are associated with this project. Feasibility studies, environmental impact assessments. Vietnam will get those documents, Thailand, Laos, and the public will get those documents. A technical review will be done, a third-party technical review will be done by the Mekong River Commission, and we'll learn about the costs and the benefits and how any costs can be mitigated, because it's possible to mitigate environmental and social impacts from this canal. And then also there'll be public forums around the region, in Cambodia too, because Cambodians are concerned about this project. I talk to Cambodians who are concerned about this project, but they have no public space to discuss. Vietnam will have a public space to discuss as well. So if the environmental impacts and the social impacts are really minimal, as the project documentations say, then it's really important to put this project through the notification process and uphold Cambodia's position as this champion of the Mekong Agreement and the protection of the Mekong River. Final point is that there are certain, and we can get into this later, uses of the canal that also require an agreement by the four Mekong member countries, Mekong River Commission member countries, where they come together to agree on how the canal is used. That's required by the 1995 Mekong Agreement. So this canal right now is avoiding those processes. It's technically illegal under international treaty until Cambodia writes their notification. And Cambodia has lots of time now to make the correct notification to the Mekong River Commission. There's plenty of time to change that and to get from kind of out of the darkness and into the light.
Và quý vị đang theo dõi chương trình tọa đàm bàn tròn của VOA Tiếng Việt với chủ đề là kênh đào Funan Techo của Campuchia, những cái vấn đề rồi thách thức và giải pháp với các khách mời tham gia từ Washington DC, đó là tiến sĩ Brian Eiler, luật sư Lê Quốc Quân, và từ Singapore là tiến sĩ Vanarit Chiang. So you are watching VOA Vietnamese roundtable with the topic Cambodia's Funan Techo Canal project, its huge challenges and solutions, with the participations of our distinguished guests from Washington DC. They are Dr. Brian Eiler and lawyer, independent observer Lê Quốc Quân, and from Singapore, the Cambodian senior researcher Dr. Vanarit Chiang. Thưa quý vị, một số trao đổi thảo luận cho đến gần đây dường như là gợi ý và cho thấy là có một số vấn đề đang được đặt ra xung quanh cái dự án kênh đào Funan Techo này, mà vừa rồi thì là các vị khách mời cũng đã đề cập bước đầu đó. Thì và giới chuyên môn quan sát, tức là thì theo quý vị đấy, thì những cái vấn đề đó nếu có thì nó có nghiêm trọng không, tức là cái mức độ của nó đấy thì thế nào đấy, nếu cần được giải quyết ấy, thì cái hướng giải quyết cần và nên thế nào, rồi thì làm gì để cái hướng giải quyết đó nó được khả thi, nó được ổn thỏa, rồi có thể là các cái luật pháp của quốc tế, thông lệ quốc tế có thể được sử dụng chăng, và trong đó thì chẳng hạn như là các vai trò chức năng của cái thỏa thuận Mekong Agreement đấy, thì năm 1995 và cái thì có thể giúp gì không trong trường hợp mà có khi tranh cãi hay là khác biệt. Well, so dear viewers and distinguished panelists, as you know, some exchanges and discussions up to now and recently seem to suggest and show that there are some certain issues being raised around this Funan Techo Canal project. So in your opinion, are those issues, if any, are they serious or not? I mean, the level of that. And if they need to be dealt with, to be resolved, so what should be the solution? What should be done to make that solution feasible and satisfactory? And can the role and function, I mean, in the framework of international laws, for example, can the role and the function of the 1995 Mekong Agreement and the Mekong River Commission, the ARC, be of any help in case of disputes and differences? Thì trong cái phần này chúng tôi lại trân trọng mời tiến sĩ Vanarit Chiang mở lời đầu tiên. So for this question, once again, we would like to invite Dr. Vanarit Chiang to share your point of view.
I think concerning solution to build this kind of mutual understanding, trust, and cooperation, I think we need to go through a legal process, right? Some may accuse that Brian mentioned that this is not a tributary system that requires consultation agreement, but the Cambodian perspective, this is the tributary system. So I think a legal debate, kind of solution to define what constitutes mainstream and tributary would be significant. So that, I think, goes through this kind of legal process because I think we need to base on the law. And of course, law is open for interpretation because the Mekong River Commission 1995 does not define a tributary system. So that is a challenge, a kind of a loophole, legal loophole. So I think Cambodia will be open to this legal kind of a discussion and solution to the issue. So if it proves that it is a tributary system, then the process is fine, it's perfect. Cambodia have been in compliance with the due process. Political solution. I think the political solution here is the lack of communication between the two capitals, Hanoi and Phnom Penh. So I think over the past few months, efforts have been carried out in order to promote information sharing. As you mentioned, Professor Lê Quốc Quân mentioned earlier that we need to promote more information sharing and transparency. So that is the way to build trust and confidence. I think that have been taken place, and the visit of President Tolam to Cambodia, which is his first overseas trip, will help promote this kind of mutual understanding. So that, I think, from the Vietnamese perspective, they still consider Cambodia as one of the key priorities in their foreign relations, Cambodia and Laos and China, because these three countries are immediate neighbors. And then the next level of Vietnam foreign policy priority is other major powers, including the US, and then the third layer is other ASEAN countries. So Cambodia remain kind of at the core of Vietnam foreign policy. So I think Vietnam also trying to promote this kind of trust and confidence and maintain this kind of traditional friendship. From a social solution may be more difficult than the other solutions, legal and political, because when it comes to the nationalist movement, something related to nationalism is very difficult to handle, the public opinion and public perceptions. So that's why I think in Cambodia now, it used to have quite a strong anti-Vietnam rhetoric in the early stage, you know, a kind of tit for tat. But now the rhetoric narrative in Cambodia is focused on Cambodia. It doesn't much on anti-Vietnam narrative. So it's more on Cambodia national interest. So that's social solution, I think, because the young generation of Cambodia and Vietnam, they don't really understand each other. The older generation, they are comrades, you know, close friends. So it's easy for them to talk to each other. But the new generation or the leadership from both countries might be difficult, especially at the social level, societal level. So that is the most complex challenge that we need to address. So this legal, political, and social solution can help build this kind of a smooth kind of project with mutual understanding, especially with Vietnam, and of course, they need to be in compliance with the Mekong River Commission Agreement 1995.
Thank you, Dr. Van Richian. Xin cảm ơn tiến sĩ Van Richian. Và tiếp theo thì chúng tôi xin mời luật sư Lê Quốc Quân. And the next, we'd like to invite lawyer Lê Quốc Quân to share your view.
I agree that we have several options and solutions to solve the problems. And of course, every problem has a solution itself. But first of all, we have to look at the legal bindings among the parties. And that should be the first documents should be based on the 1995, the Mekong agreements, that is on sustainable development. And I think it's important to consider about the fair or equitable utilizations or, you know, reasonables. And look at the canals, Funan Techo canals impacts. We, at the moment, we have no idea about how serious it will be impacted to Vietnamese people and to Mekong rivers in economically aspect only. But we just look at the other aspect, of course, that it will be political. But first of all, we need more information. We should be more transparent. So all the scientists, I do not go further into the like Dr. Naraj say that I agree with him that we should not, or maybe quite a difficult. We go to the layer of the social levels and the different point of view of different generations and the back into history that's so complicated. But first of all, the more information would help the scientists, help about the policy making maker, you know, decision makers. They understand much better about how serious it is, how impact it is, to base it on other solution. So once we have more information, we should be understanding clearer picture about it, and that one it will pave the way, or it will pave the way for the political decisions, you know. And if the political decisions, political solutions cannot solve, of course, we have to go further. It's not only about the Mekong decision, Mekong agreement is 1995, but we can go further for like a, you know, international dispute, like Cambodia has done with the previous year's temple with Thailand or other international disputes. We may go further on that because this is something that Vietnam should consider seriously. I absolutely agree that Cambodia is still one of the most important factor or the partner in the international in the diplomacy at the moment of Vietnam at the moment, because it's not only about Vietnam and Cambodia like in the past. Now the China's, you know, appearance and China's involvement into this, and this trigger a very difficult or very complex sentiments, social sentiment of both nations. What we think about China may be the same like the younger generations of Cambodia think about Vietnam. So this would be very complicated situation, but we can solve it. I do believe that we have a solution. And first of all, we have to start with the information sharing, more transparencies, and then it pave the way for the political solutions among the leaders.
Vâng, chúng tôi xin cảm ơn luật sư Lê Quốc Quân. Chúng tôi xin được mời nghe ý kiến của tiến sĩ Eiler. So thank you, lawyer Lê Quốc Quân, and how about your point of view, Dr. Eiler?
I think these points that have been made are excellent, and I look forward to discussing them more. But it's important to remember that this particular issue is not an issue between Vietnam and Cambodia. It's an issue for the entirety of the Mekong. And that means it has implications for Laos and Thailand. But also, you know, the Mekong is a major food exporter to the rest of the world. And many are concerned about the state of the Mekong Agreement. The 1995 Mekong Agreement is not only a hallmark agreement for, say, developing countries on international water diplomacy. It's writ large the hallmark agreement on water diplomacy globally. It's one of the best that is out there. It is a model that is emulated by other countries with shared rivers and shared waters. So it's very important for it to be upheld. This wedge that the canal is driving between Vietnam and Cambodia is producing rhetoric like, well, Cambodia says this, but Vietnam says that. And Cambodia has this study, and Vietnam's going to produce this study. That does not generate a productive discourse, right? Because each side can accuse the other of being politically motivated. And the wedge just goes deeper and deeper between the two countries. Importantly, these two countries have signed up for the Mekong Agreement, right? They are part of the Mekong River Commission. The Mekong River Commission is there to do the job, to manage this issue and to reduce and diffuse the tensions around this project. They just need an entry point, and the entry point is proper notification of the canal. Now, to come back to the definition of tributary, Venerate, since the last time we talked, I did a little bit of research, and in the 1995 Mekong Agreement does define a tributary, and it's the same definition, Venerate, as you mentioned in a previous instance. And this can be found in an addendum to the Mekong Agreement that defines the PNPCA process. That's the prior notification, prior consultation, and agreement process. And a tributary is defined as a natural stream that has significant impact on the Mekong mainstream. All right? A natural stream that has significant impact on the Mekong mainstream, which means it sends water into the Mekong mainstream. It impacts it. The Basak Channel does not do that. It does not fit under that definition because it does not send any water into the Mekong mainstream. That's what a tributary does. It tributes, it contributes water. Okay? Tribute you can think of as a gift, right? It gives into a river system. The Basak Channel technically is a distributary. Okay, means it distributes water from the Mekong mainstream. And all rivers, as they approach the ocean, do this. They split into branches and channels. So in Vietnam, they're, the river is known as the Gulong, right? The 9 dragons. So that means there are 9 branches of the mainstream in Vietnam, not just the Ho Giang and Tien Giang. So these are all parts of the Mekong mainstream. Without a doubt, the Basak is a mainstream channel, and that's going to stand up in the International Court of Law. Now, importantly, as Dr. Chang notes, in the Mekong Agreement, the Basak is not labeled as this or that. And I think that's because geology, geography, hydrology all clearly show that the Basak is part of the Mekong mainstream. It's no way a tributary. Now, let's think about what's at stake here. If by either normative practice or a dangerous legal precedent establishes the Basak as an actual tributary. One, Cambodia can develop that part of South Cambodia, those 4 provinces, in a similar degree as Vietnam has developed its delta, with hundreds, if not thousands of miles of different types of canals and waterworks. That would be done at the extreme expense, to the negative detriment of the Mekong Delta. It would be taking lots of water away to irrigate that part of Cambodia. This is why the agreement is set up in a way that if a project impacts a mainstream channel and it engages in irrigation during the dry season, which I think this canal will, or if it transfers water from the Mekong into another basin, which this project also does, then not only do we need to notify, consult, but the 4 countries need to come together to agree to the use of the canal. It's that serious. So this, again, is an opportunity not to violate the Mekong Agreement, not to rewrite or reinterpret what's set forward in the Mekong Agreement, but to do the right thing, to have the countries come together, look at this project together, agree that indeed its impacts are not huge, right? Find ways to mitigate the impacts and evolve and mature this international treaty. Because if they don't, then there are dangerous legal precedents moving forward. There's a potential conflict in a case at the international court system. And the 1995 Mekong Agreement is at great risk to disintegrating. And with that, there are a lot of other really bad negative practices that can come forward from each one of the 4 Mekong countries to ruin and destroy this water system for all.
Vâng, cảm ơn tiến sĩ Ryan Eiler. Và cái câu hỏi tiếp theo, trước khi chúng ta khép lại chương trình ấy, thì theo quý vị thì với cái tầm nhìn mà hướng tới cái sự phát triển phồn vinh, hòa bình ấy, ổn định bền vững ở khu vực, thì các nước có liên quan thì cần làm gì xung quanh cái dự án kênh đào Funan Techo này? Và giới chuyên môn cũng như là giới quan sát quốc tế đấy, thì nếu thấy là cần thiết thì có cái điều gì thấy cần là tư vấn hay là có lời khuyên gì với các bên có liên quan hay không tại cái thời điểm này? Nhưng mà cũng không chỉ tại thời điểm này, còn hướng tới cả cái lâu dài nữa. Và nếu có thì nếu mà cái điểm hết sức là quan trọng và ưu tiên thì đó có thể là cái gì? So the last question before we end this talk show. So with a vision towards the development or prosperity, peace and sustainable stability in the region, what should the relevant, the related countries do regarding this Funan Techo canal project? And do experts and international observers feel the need for providing consultation or advice given to the relevant parties, not only at this moment of time, of course it's very important, but also with a view to the long term? So if so, what is it? What is the priority point according to you? Và để mở đầu tiếp phần này thì chúng tôi lại xin mời tiến sĩ Chang mở lời. So we would like to invite you again, Dr. Chang, for this question.
Yeah, I think we share the view that upholding the Mekong River Agreement 1995 very critical, right, toward the kind of a fair and sustainable management of these transboundary water resources. So when the Ministry of Transport submitted this proposal to Prime Minister's office, he noted that please study the Mekong River, the Mekong Agreement 1995 first. So it took several months for them to study and then submit back to the Prime Minister's office that, okay, it's compliance with the Mekong Agreement 1995 because of Article 5. So they refer to Article 5. So just the notifications, right? So that is, I think, the political will of Cambodia is to be compliant with the Mekong Agreement 1995. So no doubt about it. And this is from the top, from the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister. So I saw this letter with the correspondent and so on. So that is no doubt that Cambodia still adheres to the Mekong Agreement 1995. But I think the question, as I raised earlier, is we need a legal interpretation or clarification with regards to this, whether it's a tributary or not, the Basak River. And the canal is not connected directly to Basak. I think there's the name of another small kind of tributary or the tributary, according to Sun Yantol remark. So that is first. I think we all share this, and this is very important, that the Mekong Agreement 1995 need to be upheld and need to be respected. Any violation of this will create a lot of trouble for our region. And Cambodia is a small country and also downstream, you know, and we are the main beneficiary and also the victim of this mismanagement or violation of the Mekong Agreement. So that, I think, Cambodia would be open to all this legal arbitration or litigation and so on in order to protect the Mekong Agreement 1995. So down the road, I think what Cambodia needs to do is to further share with regards to the information impact assessment, social environmental impact assessment. Even I read the feasibility study by the government. It doesn't provide much detail in that kind of PowerPoint style presentation. So we need more information sharing with key stakeholder, also with the public. So that, I think, public communication very important, and the narratives need to be consistent. And this is perhaps something that Cambodia as a key stakeholder need to do, is to have more coherent, consistent narratives. Otherwise, send a different signal, confusion. So that is something that Cambodia need to do by providing more information and have more coherent narrative. Thank you.
Xin cảm ơn tiến sĩ Trang. Không biết là luật sư Quân thì nghĩ thế nào. So thank you very much, Dr. Richard. And how about you? What do you think, lawyer Lê Quốc Quân? Please turn on the mic again, please.
I absolutely agree with Dr. Brian's that we have to follow the legal documents, and one of the main and the most important and first and foremost is 1995 Mekong agreements that the four countries has been signed, and the Vice Prime Minister of Cambodia has already signed in there, and we have to base this on that. And basis on that, first of all, we will have to define that this is the tributaries. This is in the main stream of the Mekong, and the notification is not enough. This should be prior consultations, and if we found that we have a prior consultation is kind of soft, that should be come up with the specific agreements, or that 2 countries or 4 countries here have to be agreed on these projects. And if it's not coming on that, we have to go into the international legal documents. We have others precedents, we have others solutions and other judgments for the international distributes on this. There are many cases in the world that we can learn it from that. And finally, if we cannot solve it, I think Vietnam has the right to defense, because according to the agreements, 1995 agreements, the people we have the saying that we have to the article number 7 mentions something about the prevention and cessations of the harmful effects. If we don't have more information, we cannot solve it. We don't know it. But once we have enough information and we can define the damages of the nations or the harmful effects of the projects to Vietnam, not only 1 million people, but 5 million people or 10 million people, and even more than that. So I think Vietnam has the right to defend on this, because the document stated quite clearly about the prevention and cessation of harmful effects and about the state responsibilities of the damages. And here's the Cambodian responsibilities on sharing information. That is the first and foremost and the most important step that we have to think about that. And I think we have to stick on the 1995 Mekong agreements and to work on that, because finally, either way we go further, all the judge have to come back with the agreement that 4 countries has already signed, and it's very good document. I think it's good for all. Thank you.
Xin cảm ơn luật sư Lê Quốc Tuân. Chúng ta lại mời tiến sĩ Brian Eiler chia sẻ quan điểm của ông. Thank you very much, Lê Quốc Tuân. And how about your point, Dr. Eiler?
So, Peter and all, when I gave my first comment, I talked about how the narrative around this project tends to change from month to month or week to week. First, it was a China Belt and Road project. Then it was not a China project. But now it is back to being a joint China-Cambodia project. The same is happening about the uses of the canal. In the notification document from the Cambodian government to the Mekong last August, there was no discussion of irrigation or agricultural uses of the canal. But Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chan-to, former Prime Minister Hun Sen, have said publicly that the canal will provide irrigation. So there's a discrepancy there. There's a changing narrative in the use and function of the canal. So this is another reason why I think Vietnam has every right to be concerned. It's really the irrigation uses that will be the most impactful to Vietnam. If this canal is just used for transportation purposes, it's got very smartly designed locks and gates to prevent water from being robbed from the Mekong mainstream and the Basak into the rest of Cambodia or into the ocean, then the impacts to Vietnam could be minimal. Now, just because there are these things doesn't mean you don't go through the consultation and the agreement process. It still requires all of that. But the narrative is just unclear. And importantly, what's at stake for Cambodia? Well, before I get to that, in America, we have the saying of what goes around comes around, right? And basically, it's the opposite of the golden rule. The golden rule is I will treat my neighbors in a way that I hope that they would treat me. But what's been happening in the rest of the Mekong is that other Mekong countries have been violating the Mekong Agreement too, including Vietnam. Now, I'm going to lay out a very simple example. Last week, the Phnom Penh Post ran a falsely and improperly framed article that said there are 61 projects on the Mekong and its tributaries. Now, we've done we've used satellite imagery to map out where various dams are, and there are over 700 dams on Mekong tributaries and the mainstream. There are 14 on the mainstream currently, all the restaurant tributaries, including parts of China. China has something like 125 dams on tributaries. Vietnam has over 120 dams on its portion of the upstream in the Central Highlands, in places like Kon Tum and Xai province and other parts of the Central Highlands. The 61 in that Phnom Penh Post article I wrote to the Mekong River Commission for clarification. That's the number of notifications the Mekong River Commission has received about projects. Now, any project, whether it's on a tributary or the mainstream, requires notification. And what I'm saying is, among the Mekong River Commission countries, there are over 600 dams, okay? There's a huge discrepancy there. 61 notifications, 600 dams. Everyone is at fault here, all right? And Cambodia is the least worst violator of this. They have the fewest dams, and Laos, Vietnam, Thailand have the most. In fact, Thailand has the most of all these. Thailand has like 300, if you can believe it. So the countries just aren't following this. And I think Cambodia is saying, well, if these others don't do it, why should we? What goes around comes around. The difference here is that this is a hugely impactful project that will essentially have severe impacts to Vietnam's Mekong Delta. It's going to break the 1995 Mekong Agreement and cause further disintegration of it. And what's really at stake here is we have to remember that Cambodia and Vietnam share this downstream floodplain. They are impacted by upstream development as well. Thailand has this grand plan to divert a tremendous amount of water, much more water than what the Funan Techo Canal could do, from the mainstream into the northeast, and use that for agricultural purposes. That will be done at the severe detriment to Cambodia and Vietnam. So again, Cambodia is pushing a very dangerous precedent here by not following through with the consultation and the agreement process. If it does, again, correct that notification, give the proper notification to the Mekong River Commission Secretariat, then there can be an evolution instead of a devolution of the 1995 Mekong Agreement. And I have faith, I have optimism that with rationale, with good legal arguments, with good evidence, that Cambodia can, make the right turn here and do the right thing.
Right. So thank you, Dr. Brian Eiler. Xin cảm ơn tiến sĩ Brian Eiler. Bây giờ thì cái chiếc chương trình thì tới đây thì cũng đã sắp mãn rồi. Nhưng mà tuy nhiên thì nếu như quý vị đã nghe ý kiến của lẫn nhau trong các vòng câu hỏi trước, thì nếu quý vị có muốn nói thêm một điểm nào đó mà quý vị muốn nói thêm, cũng có thể là trao đổi lại hoặc là phản biện như nào đấy. Đó, thì chúng tôi xin mời quý vị là có thể chia sẻ ở đây trước khi chúng ta khép lại chương trình, nếu quý vị muốn. So well, technically we have run out of the questions here, and because of time as well. But if you wish to make one last point, because you want to exchange with the other panelists, or you want to emphasize one last point on something where you think that is significant, in your opinion, as you wish, you can have it right now. So không biết là tiến sĩ Van Richard có muốn nói gì không ạ? How about you, Dr. Van Richard?
My final comment would be, I think this kind of consultation and dialogue, open, frank discussion would help promote mutual understanding. That is good. I think moving forward, I think Cambodia need to have more platforms, inviting different stakeholders to discuss this and in order to promote kind of more of information sharing. So that is moving forward. I think after the groundbreaking of the project, I think more study perhaps will be conducted and more dialogue will be conducted. So that is crucial for mutual understanding. Thank you.
Không biết luật sư thì có ý kiến gì không? Thank you.
I do hope to have more. I do hope more information sharing, and I am able to see that I foresee, or predict that it will be solved by political decisions. And with the recent visit of the Secretary's Defense of U.S., I think the Cambodians will consider much more about the way in that Vietnam is going about the way that K-chair diplomacy Vietnam is applying, and Cambodia may think about that, and we can solve it, and they will have a final political decision that can benefit both, based on more and more information that we get. Thank you.
Okay, so Lawyer Quân have just mentioned about the so-called bamboo diplomacy. Okay, strategy of Vietnam. Luật sư Quân vừa mới nói đến nhắc đến cái gọi là cái ngoại giao cây tre chứ không phải là cây tre của Việt Nam. Xin cảm ơn luật sư. Thank you, Lawyer Quân. Không biết là đến lượt mình thì tiến sĩ Eiler không biết con muốn có một cái nhận xét hay bình luận cuối cùng hay không? So how about you? Do you have your own last comment to make?
Sure. Well, with diplomacy, there's always knowledge transfer and development of mutual understanding. Vietnam's Mekong Delta is the most over-engineered river delta on the planet. Okay, there's something like 4,000 kilometers of canals, right? Cambodia, to some degree, says, "Hey, you guys have 4,000 kilometers of canals. We just want to build a 180-kilometer canal. What's the big deal?" But managing the system of the Mekong Delta, the intricate complexities of all those canals and waterworks and sluice gates to make the Mekong Delta this incredibly agriculturally productive part of the world that sustains, the population of 17 million people in the Mekong Delta, is very expensive, and it's getting more and more expensive. The canals need maintenance. The levees that line the canals, they need maintenance. They get wrecked by floods, right? Floods come in and knock them over. Water moves in places it shouldn't. And this has been a really wicked problem for the Vietnamese government, or the French colonial government of 100 years ago that started the whole thing. And the costs are enormous. Okay, the costs are enormous, so much so that Vietnam is now shifting away from trying to manage these canals in the water system because it's just too expensive and it's not productive actually for the country of Vietnam. I hope that Vietnam's government can go to Cambodia and just talk about the actual costs of managing complex canal systems like this, because the Funan Techo Canal is going to pass through an active floodplain. And the Mekong's productivity is driven by the floodplains. The floods are really important for Cambodia and for Vietnam. Those floods are just going to wreck into this canal. They're going to affect the construction process, so much so that I question why August 5th. Of course, former Prime Minister Hun Sen's birthday is a great idea, but you don't build canals during the wet season because it's incredibly expensive and technically difficult. But then, moving forward, what's the actual cost of construction? It's going to be a lot more than $1.7 billion. And then maintenance over the life of the canal. The cost and the price tag is going to be much more than that $1.7 billion over the lifetime of 40, 50 years, if not longer. So again, it's my hope that the costs of the canal can be better understood, and Vietnam can transfer this experience of managing such complex canal systems to Cambodia to reveal what the actual costs are.
Vâng, thế cái ý kiến vừa rồi của tiến sĩ Brian Eiler thì cũng đã khép lại cuộc trao đổi tọa đàm của VOA Tiếng Việt tuần này. Thì thay mặt cho những người thực hiện chương trình Quốc Phương cùng toàn ban Việt ngữ của VOA Tiếng Việt từ Washington DC, xin trân trọng cảm ơn các vị khách mời. Đó là tiến sĩ Brian Eiler từ trung tâm Simpson, tiến sĩ Vanarit Trang, nhà phân tích chính sách công của Campuchia, luật sư Lê Quốc Quân, nhà quan sát độc lập, đã dành thời gian tham gia đóng góp cho chương trình trên quan điểm riêng của mình. Chúng tôi cũng phải nói thêm là chúng tôi rất cảm ơn các quý vị, vì chúng tôi biết là tiến sĩ Brian Eiler và tiến sĩ Vanarit cũng đều rất là bận với công việc nghiên cứu hay là giảng dạy của mình, hay là luật sư Lê Quốc Quân, chúng tôi cũng mở ra một cái, hoặc là chúng tôi cũng đã có liên lạc với một số các cái chuyên gia ở bên Việt Nam, như là ở Viện Quy hoạch Thủy lợi ở miền Nam Việt Nam, hay là một cái viện về môi trường tài nguyên rồi nghiên cứu về biến đổi khí hậu cũng ở Đại học Cần Thơ vân vân. Nhưng mà rất tiếc là các chuyên gia đó thì vì các lý do khác nhau thì không tham dự được, nhưng mà cũng đã có luật sư Quân tham gia hôm nay. Thì một lần nữa chúng tôi xin cảm ơn quý vị khách mời, cảm ơn quý vị khán thính giả của VOA Tiếng Việt xa gần đã dành thời gian quan tâm theo dõi, và xin hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong các chương trình sau. So the last point that Dr. Brian Eiler has just met have also ended our talk show today. So on behalf of all of the VOA Vietnamese colleagues from Washington DC, we would like to express our sincere thanks to all of you, our distinguished guests, Dr. Eiler from Stimson Center, and Dr. Vanarit Chiang, the public policy analyst on behalf of Cambodia side, and thank you very much, lawyer Lê Quốc Quân, the independent observer. We know that you are all very busy with your researching, with your teaching, lecturing work, academic work, but you have to share your time with us. And also thank you, lawyer Lê Quốc Quân. We have try to contact some of the experts, for example, in the South Institute for Water Resources Planning in the south of Vietnam, or with the Environment and Natural Resources Institute for Climate Change Research in Can Tho University, South Vietnam. Unfortunately, for different reasons, they cannot join us, but we have Lawyer Quân to join today. So thank you all very much, and thank you, our dear viewers and audience, and we look forward to seeing you again in another program soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Đón theo dõi các chương trình hỏi đáp y học, hỏi đáp di trú Mỹ, hỏi đáp du học Mỹ, câu chuyện kinh tế hàng tuần qua podcast VOA Talk Shows trên Spotify, Apple Podcast hay Google Podcast. Nhấn vào hình chuông dưới logo VOA Talk Shows để được thông báo các chương trình mới nhất.